Turning now back to Ukraine. Joining us now is Republican Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, a member of the Armed Services Committee who just visited Ukraine. Senator, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've, of course, been on the ground there recently. Why should Americans care about this conflict?
Yeah, well, it's an important question, right, for somebody who represents, a bunch of people that live far from Ukraine. There's a number of reasons. I mean, there are obvious national security reasons when it comes to the stability of Europe. Ukraine's a smallish country. Russia's much larger, but smaller than it used to be. And yet the stability of Europe is of important consequence to the United States as a trading ally, as a NATO ally, providing security in the entire region. Also, there are a lot of North Dakotans who do business in Ukraine. There are a lot of Ukrainians who moved to North Dakota, as there are ancestors from several countries, and so we have some very direct and personal contacts. But the larger geopolitical global context is they're a freedom-loving country. Once a part, of course, of the Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin obviously still harbors a fantasy about bringing them back under the Russian flag. And that has a lot of ramifications beyond just this little country of 42 million people, well beyond the country of Ukraine.
And Senator, as far as you're concerned, what is it that you believe that Vladimir Putin wants?
Well, Vladimir Putin wants his old Soviet regime back. I have no doubt about that. He's been willing to take it back a little bit at a time. Crimea, of course, being the most famous and directly relevant occupation that to this situation. He's been patient, but he's also a leader who's, I think, running out of time. In other words, he's not getting any younger, just like the rest of us. The time for fulfillment of taking more territory and more country underneath his umbrella, I think is getting to coming to a close. And I worry a lot about leaders who, while he's a smart guy, he's not irrational, but he also harbors these fantasies. And so I worry about people like him doing things that are irrational, or for that matter, well planned out, but still really bad.
And today, as you know, the Pentagon put 8,500 U.S. troops on heightened alert to support NATO in Eastern Europe. It has stopped short of deploying new troops to the region at this point. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused by it, and I imagine others are as well. I think our position's always been that we wouldn't deploy troops on one hand. On the other hand, a unified NATO is really important, and the American leadership in unifying NATO is important. The previous report they just listened to, the president saying that there's complete unanimity among the European allies with regard to Ukraine. That would be brand new news to me, because up to this point there's not been unanimity. Even if there's unanimity is a far higher standard. So perhaps this extra show of force is a move to demonstrate unity. The problem is it's an event that's taken on in the context of a lot of confusion, and the believability of the president's bluster, I think, is certainly questionable at best, considering recent gaffes, especially the minor incursion gaffe of the other day. He's just not proven to be strong. The Afghanistan debacle, of course, continues to haunt him, and rightfully so. The ramifications well beyond Europe include things like, China and Taiwan, our allies in Taiwan, our adversaries in China, looking at this situation and wondering if we're going to continue to demonstrate weakness. I get the sense the president wants to demonstrate strength, but he's having a hard time with the credibility factor.
And just yesterday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that new sanctions against Russia could undercut the West's ability to deter Putin from invading Ukraine. But some of your colleagues disagree and want to take action to head off any potential invasion. Where do you stand on this debate?
So I think that doing sanctions after an invasion is too little too late. I mean, that's not going to deter anything. The threat of it isn't even deterring, because, again, this president has drawn lines before and then not crossed them, or not done anything when people have crossed them. I think he has a believability problem. I do think, and I strongly support, a bipartisan, strong sanctions package, realizing that in a 50-50 Senate, there's going to have to be compromise. But it can't the sequence of when the sanctions kick in matters. And I think to get Vladimir Putin's attention, we need to issue some sanctions right now. Let's not forget, he's already incurred, if you will, on Ukraine through cyber attacks. He's demonstrated his willingness and his ability to get inside of their systems, and he's going to act on that if we don't respond, in my view. And he only responds to strength, or at least from a deterrence standpoint. And that gets back a little bit to the 8,500 troops. The goal of all of this is to deter an invasion. And not to spark a war. Somebody talked about the balance between provoking and preventing. I think in Ukraine itself, having just come from there, one of the things I've noticed is that they're dealing with, of course, their own citizens, trying to not create panic while at the same time demonstrating preparedness, which, by the way, I think they've done a pretty good job of, having seen a lot of their plans. But how this is all communicated is obviously very important. And I think a sanctions package needs to be a combination of increments that begin immediately.
And quite a balancing act, as you point out, the difference between provoking and preventing. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, we thank you so much for joining us again.